But they continued to creep towards the bridge. Arrows flitted up and down. The wounded fell, did their best to crawl for the rear. One of the buildings at the side of the square had already caught fire, flames licking hungrily round the eaves of its roof. "The army!" someone whooped from the opposite battlement. "Marshal West!" Indeed. Morovia frowned down at the carnage below, the sounds of battle growing steadily more frantic. Let us hope he has not come too late. The noise of fighting crept up through the cool air, clashing and clicking, echoing calls. Logan glanced left and right at the men around him, jogging forward over the open fields, quick breath hissing, gear rattling, all blunt frowns and sharp weapons. Hardly a heartening thing to be part of all this again. The sad fact was that Logan had felt more warmth and more trust with Pharaoh and Giselle, Baez and Quai, than he did with his own kind now. They'd been a difficult set of bastards, each in their own way. It wasn't that he'd really understood them, or even liked them much. But Logan had liked himself when he was with them. Out there in the deserted west of the world, he'd been a man you could rely on, like his father had been. A man with no bloody history breathing on his shoulder, no name blacker than hell, no need to watch his back every moment. A man with hopes for something better. The thought of seeing those folk again, the chance at being that man again, put the spur to him, made Logan want to run at the grey wall of Adua all the faster. It seemed, in that moment anyway, as if he might be able to leave the Bloody Nine outside it. But the rest of the Northmen didn't share his eagerness. It was closer to a stroll than a charge. They ambled up to a stand of trees, a couple of birds went flapping into the white sky, and they stopped altogether. No one said anything. One lad even sat down with his back to a tree and started supping water from a flask. Logan stared at him. "By the dead, I don't reckon I ever saw such a piss-weak charge as this. Did you leave your bones back in the north?" There was a bit of mumbling, a few shifty looks. Red Hat glanced sideways, his tongue wedged into his bottom lip. "Maybe we did. Don't get me wrong, Chief, or Your Royal Highness, or whatever it is now." He bowed his head to show he meant no disrespect by it. "I've fought before and hard enough, had my life balanced on a sword's edge and all of that. Just, well, why fight now, is what I'm saying. What we're all thinking, I reckon. Ain't none of our business, is it? Ain't our fight, this." Dogman shook his head. "The Union are going to take us for a right crowd of cowards." "Who cares what they think?" someone said. Red Hat stepped up close. "Look, Chief, I don't care much of a shit whether some fool I don't know thinks I'm a coward. I've spilled enough blood for that, we all have." grunted Logan. "So your vote's to stay here, then, is it?" Red Hat shrugged. "Well, I guess." He squawked as Logan's forehead crunched into his face, smashing his nose like a nut on an anvil. He dropped hard on his back in the mud, spluttering blood down his chin. Logan turned round, and he let his face hang on one side, the way he used to. The Bloody Nine's face, cold and dead, caring for nothing. It was easy to do it, felt as natural on him as a favourite pair of boots. His hand found the cold grip of the Maker's sword, and all around him men eased back, shuffled away, muttered and whispered. "Any other one of you cunts want a vote?" The lad dropped his flask in the grass and jumped up from where he'd been sitting. Logan gave a few of them his eye, one by one, whoever looked hardest, and one by one they looked at the ground, at the trees, at anything but him. Until he looked at Shivers. That long-haired bastard stared straight back at him. Logan narrowed his eyes. "How about you?" Shivers shook his head, hair swaying across his face. "Oh no, not now." "When you're ready, then. When any of you are ready. Until then, I'll have some work out of you. Weapons," he growled. Swords and axes, spears and shields were all made ready quick time. Men fussed about, finding their places, competing all of a sudden to be the first to charge. Red Hat was just getting up, wincing with one hand to his bloody face. Logan looked down at him. "If you're feeling hard done by, think on this. In the old days, you'd be trying to hold your guts in about now."
"Aye,"
he grunted, wiping his mouth.
"Right you are."
Logan watched him walk off back to his boys, spitting blood. Say one thing for Logan Ninefingers. Say he's got a talent for turning a friend into an enemy. "Did you have to?" asked the dogman. Logan shrugged. He hadn't wanted it, but he was leader now. Always a disaster, but there it was. And a man in charge can't have men putting questions. Just can't have it. They come with questions first, then they come with knives. Couldn't see another way. That's how it's always been, ain't it? I was hoping times changed. Times never change. You have to be realistic, dogman. Aye. Shame, though. A lot of things were a shame. Logan had given up trying to put them right a long time ago. He slid out the Maker's sword and held it up. "Let's go, then! And this time, like we care a shit!" He started off through the trees, hearing the rest of the lads following. Out into the open air, and the walls of Adua loomed up, a sheer grey cliff at the top of a grassy rise studded with round towers. There were quite a number of corpses lying around, enough to give even a battle-hardened Carl some cold feelings. Gurkish corpses, mostly, from the colour of their skin, sprawled among all kinds of broken gear, squashed into muddy earth, trampled with hoofprints. "Steady!" shouted Logan as he jogged on through them. "Steady!" He caught sight of something up ahead, a fence of sharpened stakes, the body of a horse hanging dead from one of them. Behind the stakes, men moved, men with bows. "Cover up!" A few arrows came zipping down. One thudded into Shiver's shield, a couple more into the ground round Logan's feet. A Carl not a stride from him got one in the chest and tumbled over. Logan ran. The fence came wobbling towards him, a good bit slower than he'd have liked. Someone stood between two of the stakes, dark-faced, with a shining breastplate, a red plume on his pointed helmet. He was shouting to a crowd of others gathered behind him, waving a curved sword. A Gurkish officer, maybe? As good a thing to charge at as any. Logan's boots squelched at the churned-up ground. A couple more arrows spun past him, hastily aimed. The officer's eyes went wide. He took a nervous step back, raised his sword. Logan jerked to his left, and the curved blade thudded into the turf at his feet. He growled as he swung the Maker's sword round, and the heavy length of metal clanged deep into the officer's bright breastplate, left a great dent in it. He screeched, then tottered forwards, all doubled up and hardly able to gasp in a breath. His sword spun out of his hand, and Logan hit him in the back of his head, crushed his helmet, and sent him sprawling in the mud. He looked to the others, but not one of them had moved. They were a tattered-looking set, like a dark-skinned version of the weakest kind of thralls. Hardly the ruthless bastard he'd expected from the way that Pharaoh had always talked about the Gurkish. They huddled together, spears sticking out this way and that. A couple even had bows with arrows nocked. Probably could have stuck him like a hedgehog, but they didn't. Still, charging right at them might well have been the very thing to wake them up. Logan had taken an arrow or two in his time, and he didn't fancy another. So, instead of coming forward, he stood up tall and he gave a roar, a fighting roar, like the one he'd given when he charged down the hill at Carleon all those years ago, when he still had all his fingers and all his hopes intact. He felt the dogman come up beside him and lift his sword and give a scream of his own. Then Shivers was up with them, bellowing like a bull and smashing the head of his axe against his shield. Then Red Hat, with his bloody face, and Grim and all the rest yelling their war cries. They stood in a long line, shaking their weapons, beating them, crashing together, roaring and screaming and whooping at the tops of their voices, making a sound as if hell itself had opened up and a crowd of devils was singing welcome. The brown men watched them, staring and trembling, their mouths and their eyes wide open. Logan didn't reckon they'd ever seen anything like this before. One of them dropped his spear. Didn't mean to, maybe, just so struck with the noise and the sight of all these crazy, hairy bastards, his fingers came open. It fell, anyway, whether he meant it or not, and that was it. They all started dropping their gear. Fast as they could, it clattered down in the grass. Seemed stupid to keep shouting, and the war cries died out, left the two groups of men staring at each other in silence across that stretch of mud, planted with bent stakes and twisted corpses. "Strange kind of battle, that," muttered Shivers. The dog-man leaned towards Logan. "What do we do with them now we've got 'em? We can't just sit here minding 'em." Said Grim. Logan chewed at his lip, spun his sword round and round in his hand, trying to think of some clever way to come at this. He couldn't see one. Might as well just let 'em go. He jerked his head away north. None of them moved, so he tried it again and pointed with his sword. They cringed and muttered to each other when he lifted it, one of them falling over in the mud. "Just piss off that way," he said, "and we've got no argument. Just piss off that way." He stabbed with the sword again. One of them got the idea now, took a cautious step away from the group. When no one struck him dead, he started running. Soon enough, the others followed him. Dogman watched the last of them shamble off. Then he shrugged his shoulders. "Good luck to 'em, then, I guess." "Aye," muttered Logan. "Good luck." Then, so quiet that no one could hear, "Still alive, still alive, still alive." Glocta limped through the reeking gloom, down a fetid walkway half a stride across, his tongue squirming into his empty gums with the effort of staying upright, wincing all the way as the pain in his leg grew worse and worse, doing his best not to breathe through his nose. "I thought, when I lay crippled in bed after I came back from Gurkle, I could sink no lower. When I presided over the brutality of a stinking prison in Angland, I thought the same again. When I had a clerk slaughtered in an abattoir, I imagined I had reached the bottom. How wrong I was." Koska and his mercenaries formed a single file, with Glocta in their midst, their cursing, grumbling, slapping footfalls echoing up and down the vaulted tunnel, the light from their swinging lamps casting swaying shadows over the glistening stone. Rotten black water dripped from above, trickled down the mossy walls, gurgled in slimy gutters, rushed and churned down the reeking channel beside him. Ardy shuffled along behind, with his instruments clasped under one arm. She had abandoned any attempt to hold up the hem of her dress, and the fabric was well stained with black slurry. She looked up at him, damp hair hanging across her face, and made a weak effort at a smile. "You certainly do take a girl to the very best places." "Oh, indeed. My knack for finding romantic settings no doubt explains my continuing popularity with the fairer sex." Glocta winced at a painful twinge. "Despite being a crippled monstrosity. Which way are we heading now?" Longfoot hobbled along in front, tethered by a rope to one of the mercenaries. "North, due north, give or take. We are just beside the middle way." "Ha." Above us, not 10 strides distant, are some of the most fashionable addresses in the city, the shimmering palaces and a river of shit, so much closer together than most would ever like to believe. Everything beautiful has a dark side, and some of us must dwell there so that others can laugh in the light. His snort of laughter turned to a squeak of panic as his toeless foot slid on the sticky walkway. He flailed at the wall with his free hand, fumbled his cane, and it clattered to the slimy stones. Ardy caught his elbow before he fell and pulled him upright. He could not stop a girlish whimper of pain hissing out from the gaps in his teeth. "You're really not enjoying yourself, are you?"
"I've had better days."
He smacked the back of his head against the stone as Ardy leaned down to retrieve his cane.
"To be betrayed by both,"
he found himself muttering.
"That hurts, even me. One I expected, one I could have taken, but both. Why?"
"Because you're a ruthless, plotting, bitter, twisted, self-pitying villain?" Glocter stared at her, and she shrugged. "You asked." They set off once again through the nauseating darkness.
"The question was meant to be rhetorical." "Rhetoric? In a sewer?"
"Wait up there!" Koska held up